So what is it that makes your business different than the ABC down the street, right?
Yes.
And oftentimes it's really, small business owners have a hard time articulating what that is. And I have found that when we get clear on who we're serving, then we get to know what are the problems that they're facing. What are their hot button issues that they really want resolved? So who are we serving? What is the problem? And what are the benefits? What is it that they're really looking for? On the other side of this problem, what is it that they really want?
Welcome to another episode of In Flow with Soul. This is Coach Monica Edwards, and today I am the guest host, and I'm going to be interviewing one of my dear friends and incredible colleague, Dr. Mary Meduna-Gross. Mary, welcome. I am so excited.
I am so excited about this conversation as well. Thank you for setting time aside for this today. I am excited to be on the other side of the mic.
Yeah, me too. We've been looking forward to this. And when this releases, it's going to be on your birthday. So happy birthday.
Exactly. It's a perfect timing. I feel like it's a rebirth all over again.
Right on. So Mary, I am just dying for your people, your tribe to hear your story, to hear your journey of how you got to where you are today. Can you share some of that with us?
I can. I would love to. It has been... I'm going to use the term spiritual boot camp. One of my guests just used that recently to describe her experience as an entrepreneur. And so I'm going to apply that whole definition of spiritual boot camp from the very beginning of my story. So my story starts out when I was in school, both in elementary school and in high school. I was one of those kids who really didn't have to try that hard in school to get by. And so I didn't, and I just got by. But I also noticed that I had peers that struggled in school. And when I looked to see what kind of support they were getting from the teachers, I felt like there was something lacking here. Like they're not getting what they need. I'm getting more than I need, and I've got my peers that aren't getting what they need. And so I decided that when, I was in high school, who do I want to be when I grow up? I felt like I really wanted to help those classmates of mine and others like them who kind of felt marginalized, right? Who felt like they're...
For 1 second, Mary?
Yeah.
That's incredible. At such a young age, people in high school are not looking at how they can help others. That's incredible that your story started that young. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm blown away by that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it really aligned. So I see this problem, right? What can I do to fill that gap? Who do I want to be? And I'm not sure where becoming a teacher ever started, because I think it started before this. And so if I'm kind of thinking like, well, I'm going to be a teacher, what kind of teacher am I going to be? I want to be that teacher that includes everybody and there's nobody left around the fringes. So I go into education, and I end up working with students who have a lot of social, emotional, behavioral kinds of challenges. So these are the kids that really trigger adults in a school setting.
Yes.
And, even their peers. So oftentimes those kids are really quickly and severely restricted in their access to the school setting. So my job was to work with them to help these students regulate their emotions to the point where they could now function in a regular setting. So while I was moving into this profession, I'm recognizing these are the kids that I really feel I resonate with, and I want to do a good service for them and for their families. So when it was time to decide what do I want to do my master's in, I decided to do community and mental health counseling, because I thought that if I was going to, I knew that a lot of my students and their families were intersecting with that world as well, and I wanted to be able to help them navigate that as much as I could. So I got my master's degree in counseling, and I also got what now would probably be considered my first coaching certification. So this was like in the mid 90s. I studied with the William Glasser Institute and was certified as a choice theory reality therapy therapist.
Wow.
And that model that I was taught through choice theory, I used in my classroom with my students. And this was really a way, again, to help others, teach others how to regulate their emotions, how to know how to figure out what is it that I really want here. What am I doing to get it? Is that working? Am I willing to try something different? And so those were the core questions that I used to work with my students. And in one case, I had moved to from Tennessee, where I'd started this work, now to Indiana, and I took over a classroom, an elementary school classroom, where all of the kids were already pulled out of their regular ed classrooms. They were in a separate special education classroom, all with kids with behavioral disorders or challenges, right? And when I remember when I interviewed for this job, I walked into this room and kids were everywhere. Adults were everywhere. It was chaos. And that whole classroom had nothing but substitute teachers and paraprofessionals the entire time, for the entire year before I got there. So no wonder there was total chaos.
Absolutely.
So I come in for that first year, and after 2 years of working with these kids, all of them but one ended up back in their general education classroom setting. They were all able to function at a high level. Most of the students that I worked with, although they had a lot of behavioral challenges, they were bright kids. In fact, they were too bright for the adults sometimes, right? Because they could outsmart them, and that would really upset the adults. And, that's a fun skill to have, is to be able to upset adults at will, right?
At that age,
especially. So when I saw what could be done for students and in such an extreme conditions, I started to create this vision of, we could do this in all of the classrooms. We could have entire schools where kids didn't feel like they were on the fringe. We could teach and create these environments where everyone felt that they belonged and everyone's needs could be met. So it's perfect time for me to move into leadership. So I move into leadership, and there was something about that change from teacher to leader that I lost and forgot everything I knew. And my first year as a leader, I probably could have been considered more of a dictator. Like, I was brutal. Like, I don't know what happened to my mind. And I apologize to those teachers if they ever happen to be listening to this. Like, I'm sorry, that was a terrible year.
Interesting, in hindsight, we can see our previous selves and how we grow and develop into who we are today.
Yeah, it was brutal. I don't know why I thought that, they were just waiting for me to come tell them what they were doing wrong.
Wow.
And shockingly, that was not well received. Right? So at the end of that year, the assistant superintendent had talked to my director and said, this isn't working out with Mary. We need to let her go. And the director said, no, let me work with her another year. And, if after another year she's not where we need her to be, then we'll let her go. And so I started working really closely with Gwen at that point. It was a mentorship role, right? So I would go into her office probably every afternoon, if not at least most afternoons, and just talk about, what did I do today? How did that go? How would I do it differently? And I grew tremendously. In fact, after 3 years of being in that district, now Gwen suddenly decides to retire.
Oh.
At the end of July, right? School's starting up in August, end of July, Gwen says, I'm retiring. I found my true life is in New Zealand, and I'm moving into my retirement. And so I said to the superintendent, look, I've been working really closely with Gwen for the past 3 years. I know my start here was kind of rough, but if you need someone in the interim, I'd be happy to step in until you could find someone. And they're like, yeah, thanks, Mary. We got this. I took no offense to that. It was just, I'm here, and if that's possible, I'd do it. 2 weeks later, they come back. Are you still willing to fill in as interim? Yes, as a matter of fact, I am. So that's how I got into the first directorship that I was responsible for. And I had 5 superintendents. It was a co-op. And because I was working so closely with Gwen, like really, it did seem like a very smooth transition. And I wasn't starting anything new. It was just really just keeping things going
Right.
with an eye to what is next. What are the next things we need to focus on? And literally the day before, so this is the end of the year, the day before my next board meeting where I was going to be appointed the director, four of my superintendents called me and said, well, gosh, we've got this on the agenda, but nobody's really called you and said, do you still want to do this? And to all four of them, yes, I love what I'm doing. I'd be honored to continue in this capacity. So I show up the next morning for this meeting, fully expecting that I'm going to be made this offer to be a director, and a new superintendent had joined the group that morning. It was her first day on the job. It was her first meeting of her first day on the job. And when it came time to make the offer, and she was the superintendent in charge.
Okay.
And she just said, we're not making an offer today. I lost my shit.
I'm sure.
I don't know how
They didn't even tell you that was her first day, or did they?
Well, I knew it was her first day, right? Because she was a superintendent within my co-op, and I knew she was in that districts. They were the home district, and so that superintendent kind of had say over everything. So, shocked me a lot, and really took the wind out of my sails.
I'm sure.
Like, holy crap!
How did you handle that in that moment?
I fell apart.
Yeah.
In that moment, I fell apart. Yeah, it was such a shock. And so I thought, okay, well, I don't want to stay here. Like, I can't stay here now. So I found another position. And at the time, I was working on my doctorate program. And it was coming up to the time when I was going to need to, the program I was in, it was a cohort where we would go down to Indiana State for a full day, take classes like from 7 till 6 at night. And I knew I wanted to be in a position where I wasn't the director at that point, right? I wanted more of a middle management role so that my absence one day a week wouldn't be as detrimental, right? So timing is everything, right? And so it was the right time for me to move into this other position. I finished my doctoral program. And then I moved over to Illinois. This is all in Indiana. And continued then as a director in Illinois. And so I'm in a couple of districts in Illinois, and every district that I was in, the task was really the same. Our special ed programs are not, we're getting hit with regulation violations, and we're getting hit with, kids aren't doing well enough. So my job was always to make changes to the special ed programs to align with regulations and to align with better outcomes for students. And I was passionate about this work. I was passionate about the work for the kids, for the families, and for the teachers, right? I mean, the school that I had, this dream that I have of the school wasn't just that kids felt safe and that they could be, grow in those settings. I wanted that same thing for teachers.
Absolutely.
And so I was frustrated that I wasn't able to sell that vision to enough people to make that change in a way that was smooth enough. So my superintendent called me in one afternoon and said, look, I don't know what to tell you. I wouldn't do anything different than you are, but what you're doing is not working. It's causing too much chaos. It's causing too much conflict here. So I don't know what you need to do differently, but you need to do something differently to create less chaos while you create this change. And I said, well, I don't know how to do that either. So I went back to my desk, and I'm like, again, on one of those moments where I don't know what else to do. I literally have done everything that I know to do. I've got the degrees, I've got the colleagues. I'm asking for input, and nobody can tell me what I can do differently. So in that moment, what popped into my head was the Jahari Window. And this might be something that you're familiar with, like from Psych 101 class.
Yes. Yep.
And it's basically, I think of quadrants, and there's one quadrant. There's everything you know about you and everybody else knows it too, right? And then there's a quadrant of things that you don't know about you and that nobody else knows either.
Yep.
And what occurred to me in that moment, two things. One is that I must be contributing to these results in some way. I don't know how, but I must be contributing. And then this Jahari Window idea pops into my head. And so then my conclusion is, well, whatever's in this quadrant that I don't know, and clearly nobody else knows either, because they can't help me with this, whatever is holding me back is in this quadrant. Yes. And the next thought I had was, and I literally said this out loud, God, I wish I had a coach. And that caught my attention, because I usually don't talk to myself out loud. It's usually all internal.
Right, yeah.
And I didn't know coaching was a thing. So it was my voice, but I don't think it was, it was one of those divine intervention kinds of things.
Interesting.
Right?
I love that.
I Googled it. Oh my gosh, coaching is a thing. So what aligned so perfectly for me was going back to, my very beginning. I want to help people who just, they feel like they're on the fringes. They're not getting what they want. They don't know how to get what they want. And through special education, or even through like a mental health route, you have to tell people that they're broken in order for them to get services. And that never sat well with me. And so I never practiced as a counselor because I never wanted to go through that mental health diagnosing against the DSM-4 and all of that kind of thing. So here's coaching. I can help people from where they are, get them to where they want to go without ever having to tell them they're broken.
Yeah.
So I felt like, okay, here's what I can do. Here's how I can be my best self and help others be their best self. So I sign up, I get the certification programs. I resigned from that position, and in my mind, I left public education.
Okay.
So I have this doctorate in leadership. I now have my coaching certification. Oh my goodness, put it together, leadership coach, boom. I'm in business. I'm a leadership coach. I knew nothing about how to do a business. I didn't even know where to start. And so for a year, at first, I don't even know, didn't even know enough to be concerned about it. Like, I didn't even know that I didn't have anything going on.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And so then I started, so I'm not getting any clients just by saying I'm a leadership coach. And I might add, I was really only just saying that to myself because I really wasn't talking to anybody else about it.
Right. It's the best kept secret.
Exactly.
Which is, by the way, how all of us coaches start out.
Right.
It's our little secret. No one knows.
Yeah, exactly.
And nothing's happening. We can't figure out why.
I don't know why. So then I started listening to other people. Like, okay, well, just saying this to myself isn't doing anything. So now I start listening to other people, and I have no way of knowing what I need or want to begin with. And therefore I have no way of evaluating what people are offering me. And so I just say yes to things randomly that they sold, they had good sales pitch. And they convinced me that this is what I need. And maybe it is what I needed, but it just wasn't what I needed at that time, or I didn't have all the right parts together. So at the end of a year, I'd spent a lot of money. I had a little bit of this, I had a little bit of that, and I had 0 clients. Yep. So, my husband and I were like, we're not going to continue to do this forever. So I went back to corporate. Okay. And in this go around, I went back to schools, but now in a role of like a coach consultant, to help schools that were identified under No Child Left Behind, having chronically underperforming students. So for 5 years, I worked with 4 high schools, and in the Chicago area that were in this chronically underperforming list. And the work that I did with them was a combination of mindset work along with models and systems. Those two things together is what I worked on with the school leadership teams. And I love the work. I really connected with the leadership teams, the whole mindset piece. I really felt like I got to lean into like the personal side of leadership, along with, the systems and those kinds of things. And so at the end of 4 years, the schools were now all going to be reevaluated. The contract that my company had with the state had changed, where in the first iteration, if you were one of those schools that were identified and were eligible for services, you came to my company or you just declined the services. And in the next iteration, my company was one of many companies that you could choose to work with.
Gotcha.
So at the end of these 4 years, the schools are getting reevaluated. And the company that I was working with, I think, just assumed that we would continue to work with our same clients. They didn't expect that 3 out of my 4 high schools would no longer be eligible for services. They had made so much progress. I was shocked that 3 of my 4 high schools that I was working with were no longer eligible for services. The one high school that remained in that lowest 5% was a school that chose not to work with me. They didn't have to, right? They were on my caseload and they just chose not to work with me. So for me, what this said is that combination of mindset and systems has a powerful impact on organizations and teams and outcomes for the organization. I felt like on top of the world. In those schools, is their work done? No, by all means, it's not done, but they had a really good start. And I was really proud of myself for having been a part of that journey to help them get to that place. Because in coaching, it's not, sometimes in consulting, it's let's keep these clients as long as we can. In coaching, it's let me help you get up and going, get your systems, get your habits going, and then you don't need me anymore, right? That's the goal for coaching. So I met the goal. These 3 high schools were no longer eligible, and so I get laid off. And I'm thinking, okay,
put yourself right out of a job, Mary. Good job.
I know. And so here's another one of those. What do I do now? At that time, a colleague that I had gone to NLP training with had a work anniversary on LinkedIn. I just acknowledged it, and he came back with, "Are you ready to work with me now?" And I thought, well, as a matter of fact, I am. I just became available. Was it a free agent?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. Yes, I am a free agent as of this week. So that's where then I was able to join a real estate company on their transformational coaching team. And the clients that I worked with were often described as those clients who knew what to do to build their business. They just were getting in their own way and not doing the things that they knew they needed and even wanted to do. So, but even to do the mindset coaching, again, I had to learn those models and systems that this company uses for building a business. So I had to learn that in order to do the mindset work with my clients. So here's my opportunity now. I've just been given an opportunity to learn how to build a business. Learn it by teaching it, right?
Yes.
So once again, I was like, oh my gosh, I love models and systems. I love mindset work. This is really phenomenal. I can't believe I get to do this. And it also felt like I was limited to real estate agents, because if I wanted to work with another small business owner, let's say the naturopath down the street, right? I can't take a real estate book that says, here's how you build your real estate business, take it to that naturopath and say, just ignore all the references to real estate. The system is the same.
Right.
It is the same, but you can't do that, right? You can't package it that way. So I started to just ask myself, like, what else could I do, or what other ways could I help business owners get access to these models and systems that they need? Because the other thing that I've realized as I was working with these clients is that I wasn't the only one who didn't know how to build a business.
Right.
Remember that first year? I assumed I was the only idiot who didn't know how to do it. And not that anyone is an idiot for not knowing how to do it, but as you said, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, so there's going to be other people out here who also have passion for the product or the service that they're delivering, but they just don't know how to get it there. They don't know how to build it. They don't know how to scale it. And I love helping businesses do that, because it's a way of, again, it's that, to me, a business is an extension of the owner, right?
Yes.
It's not only am I growing, or not only is that business owner growing, but they're growing through the growth of their business. Yep. That spiritual boot camp again.
Yes.
Right.
And so one thing you're not saying, but you're saying, we read in between the lines, is life has a way of giving you all the experiences you need so you can have the impact on the world that you were created to have.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about going back to my story, because I really, up until probably 2 years ago, I struggled with my story because I saw just failure after failure.
Yep.
It's a total reframe.
Yeah.
A total reframe of those were the challenges that I had to experience, because I know my clients have experienced those same things.
And that goes back to one of our core beliefs. There are no failures. There are only opportunities to learn. And if we look at failures, what the world defines as failures, and look at all this.
Yes.
I love that pivotal point.
Yes.
In your mind, right? Because that's a huge shift, the way we look at it.
Huge shift. And it changes everything. So when I saw myself, burning out, I often use the term burnout. And burnout is the word that I was more comfortable with than just, I got pushed out, because that's what it felt like.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you do for self-care and during this whole journey? Did you understand self-care?
Not at all.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about it. What I did know, though, was, remember the Glasser work that I had started with? One of the premises of the reality therapy model is that, we're all doing the best we can in the moment with what we've got. So we're always doing the best we can. And all of our behavior is intended to help us meet one or more of our basic needs. So that's what drives and motivates all of our actions. Say that
again. I've never heard that one. All of our behavior
is our attempt to meet one or more of our basic needs. So love and belonging, fun, freedom, power, worth and recognition. So everything we do is to try to experience these needs being met.
Yes.
So on the one hand, and the other part is that I was 100% responsible for my experiences, right? This is an internally driven experience. It's not externally driven. So for instance, like words like he makes me so mad or she makes me so happy, right? At the literal truth, that's not possible, right? People can do things, but then we interpret that behavior as either something that we like or something that we don't like. So it doesn't matter what they're doing. It matters what our story is. So I knew these things, but I didn't quite know what to do with it. I was good at doing this with kids, but I realized I wasn't doing it so well with myself. And in the midst of all of this, I have a major flare-up of a chronic health condition. I have psoriasis.
Oh.
And I wasn't listening to my body at all. And I knew that I had the condition like from high school, but I didn't need any medication to manage it. But now it was getting to a point where my entire face would just out of the blue swell up. My eyes would swell shut. Blisters would show up on my arms and on my chest. It was vicious. And I still didn't want to go the medical route. Like I didn't want to take those biologics and with all of the side effects.
Right.
But I didn't know what other options there were. So for a year, I just kind of suffered through the flare-ups and hoped that a solution would somehow find its way to me. And after a year of hoping, I found a functional medicine doctor who had a doctorate not only in immunology, but also in metaphysics. So here was a doctor.
Nice combination.
Exactly. Have you ever had a doctor who says, I think a little energy work here would really help you out. Yeah. Would you be interested?
They should be, but that's awesome. Yeah. That blew your mind. What a great find.
It was amazing. And I'll never forget the first meeting that we had with him. I'm sitting there, my face is all puffed up and I've got blisters all over. And that's the external. The internal, I'm completely depressed. I'm in my mid 40s and I'm like, oh my God, is this the rest of my life? Is this what I'm in for? And he says to me, You're not broke. You're just fine. This is chronic stress. Get to the bottom of your chronic stress, and this is going to go away.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay. So here's a big lesson, right? We don't take care of ourselves.
Yes.
We will pay the price.
We will. The body will ultimately, it can't, right? It can't continue to, I'm going to say, take the abuse that we give it.
Yeah. Well, stress is dis-ease in the body. Say that real fast.
Yeah.
Dis-ease, right?
Yeah.
It's dis-ease in the body. Yeah. Wow, Mary. Okay.
So I ended up turning to alternative therapies for acupuncture is one of my major therapies to help manage these symptoms. And so that whole, I value the services that these alternative practitioners offer and provide. And so now as a business coach, I am targeting those health and wellness businesses because I value the services that they have and I want to help make those services available to more people. So that's my personal connection to that.
I love that. I'm hearing from day one, wanting to impact. I'm hearing the word chaos, right, along the journey. And I can't help but see that book behind you, Mary.
Yes.
From chaos to clarity.
Yes.
It's all part of the story, right? Even the stress and the disease and the opportunities are failing our way forward. What a beautiful story of impact and growth and perseverance and the building blocks along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew I was going to be in education. And then when I was getting my undergrad, I knew I was going to get my doctorate. I didn't know in what. And I knew that I was going to be a consultant or coach after that. Okay. So it was just one of those knowings. Like it wasn't something that I necessarily said, here's the kind of consultant I'm going to be. It was just, this is what's ahead for me.
Absolutely.
I don't know. It's weird. It didn't feel like a choice. It felt like it was just, that's the path. And but it's interesting to tell the story and to even look back on the story, because when you're in the story, it's hard to see context. It's hard to see, how is this a development of where I've been? How is this setting me up for where I'm coming next or where I'm going next? Yeah. And it just feels shitty sometimes to be in the middle of it.
You can't see that when you're in the midst of the shitstorm, right?
Exactly.
And stuff is flying all over the place.
It is.
But it does become clear, right, in the end. Even if we can't see it when they're in the middle of the chaos. That is beautiful.
So that is one strategy that I still use. Once I accepted my story, then I started to be able to see the possibility of in the moment. So let's say in the last couple of weeks, right, I've been stressed about getting new things set up. And in the midst of that mess, I'm saying to myself, okay, well, here's another learning point that I'm sure I'm going to be able to use somewhere down the line. It really sucks to be here right now. It's really painful to be here right now. And so what I did was I looked back at, where have I been? How is this connected to where I've been? What could this possibly be setting me up for? And even if I can't imagine what it is setting me up for because it's so foggy, right? Just having that trust that this is setting me up for something bigger gives me the confidence, I guess, just to stay in that storm.
Yeah.
Stay in the storm. It isn't going to last forever. And when I come out of this, I'm going to be stronger than I was on the other side of it.
Amen. So much truth in that. So much truth. Weathering the storms, right? And I have come to find, Mary, what you just said without saying is that if we just trust the process of life, the process of the pain, all of those things, in those worst times, I think it's a sign that you're about to have a major breakthrough. I have seen that over and over again in my life, in my client's life. I'm seeing it in your life, in your story.
Do you know how many times I have just said to myself in the last couple of weeks, holy crap, that breakthrough must be right around the corner.
Yes.
Because
It's coming.
This storm is wild.
It is coming. Wow. So that brings us full circle. I want to hear more about you personally, and I want to hear about what are you doing with your clients now? So we know how you got here.
Yes.
Can you share what you do for your clients now?
So what I'm offering now is actually the first thing I want to announce is a new partnership with a leadership coaching company called Lucidly.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Again, interesting to just see how this showed up in my story, right? I kind of wondered what I was going to be able to do with my leadership knowledge and skills, because that is a passion for me. I mean, leadership is everything from the individual to the organization. And so when this opportunity came up, I was thrilled to explore it. And as I was exploring it, sometimes you just know, right? You just know that things are a good match. And this is a really strong match. This is an organization that I both have a lot to contribute to and have a lot to learn from.
Beautiful.
So with Lucidly, we offer leadership coaching to medium to small professional service firms. So this could be like a law firm, accounting firm, IT firm, those kinds of things, right? So we provide that leadership instruction and coaching so that, what is the challenge of all leaders, right? We have these objectives that we want to achieve. And we have people that we need to do the work because we can't achieve it by ourselves, right? We can't just do it all by yourself. So the leader's job is to, how do I find and then keep people who are committed to the same organizational objectives that are committed to the organizational objectives, right? And also want to personally grow.
Yes.
Right? It's not just about the organization. It is about how are they personally growing. And so that leader's role is to keep an eye on the organization's outcomes and objectives and on the hearts and minds of the people that are actually doing that work so that we can develop these individuals to naturally meet the objectives of the organization, but they're also growing in their own right.
Wow.
So
that's so true. And personal development is huge. Right? And if you even loop that back to your story, you're not the same person you were when you were in that first role.
Exactly.
Where you apologize to the teachers, right? That's all about personal development and growth.
Exactly. Right. So again, just like I didn't know how to build a business, just because you're put into a leadership role doesn't mean you automatically know and understand leaders. And I'm guessing, I don't know if there's any statistics out there on this, but the leaders that we have had that we probably would model our own leadership behaviors after probably weren't that good of a leaders to begin with.
Right. Absolutely.
And if you're lucky enough to have had a leader that helped you personally grow and be committed to the organization, then learn everything you can from them about what they do, how they do it, and not only what they do, but how they think. Who are they? Who is it that how do they want to show up in this role? Because it's how they want to show up that drives what they actually do. Because the doing can be different. The doing is really just a small part of the puzzle. It's really who are we as we show up. Who was I? I was hyper defensive. I thought I knew better than everybody else, right? And so my doing was to let everybody know that I was better than they were and that here's all of their flaws. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Versus
so much growth showing up. And a lot of that is what's going on in between here, right?
Exactly.
This guides how we show up.
Exactly. And so many of us have this illusion that leadership has to be that, the beast on the hill and drive with power and force. And instead, there's a way to connect with people. You connect with people and you bring them along. You don't need power or force. If that mission is compelling enough, if their personal role in this is compelling enough, there's no need to push anybody.
So really, in your capacity in the leadership realm is to, I don't know if transform is the right word, but transform leaders, good leaders, into great leaders who people want to follow, even if they didn't have to.
Exactly. Exactly. And then just think about the ease, power. Right? Think about the ease. We so often, again, feel like we have to show up to work with this defensive position where I've got to force something to happen. Whereas when we can learn these leadership skills, we can learn just to kind of sit back and get into that flow and learn to, it kind of feels like a jazz ensemble, right? Innovation. You're making it up as you go along if you're in the flow, right? Yes. But a jazz ensemble isn't going to work if one person comes in and says, "This is it," right? You all have to just play off of me.
I'm going to be louder than the rest of you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to make it about me, and this is my show. And instead, it's our show. And how are we all getting to where we want to go?
Yeah, beautiful.
And that all starts with that mindset piece. It starts with the leader themselves has to have that capacity of self-awareness to recognize, when do I feel like I'm starting to feel like I have to force something here or I have to make something happen, versus what is happening already here that I can get in alignment with and help facilitate and move forward.
Yeah, I love that, Mary. Love that. Is there anything else that you want to share about your partnership with Lucidly before we start talking about your private practice?
Nope. I think that really covers the Lucidly side. I'm really thrilled.
Congratulations. So exciting. Yeah. I can see the energy. What a great partnership.
Definitely.
Excellent. So tell me about your private practice. So you've gone through all of this. You didn't know how to start a business, how to build one. We know that when we just say we're a coach and keep it to ourselves, that it's not effective.
Doesn't work. Right.
When your friends and family don't know what you do and we're quiet about it.
Seriously.
So tell me more about your private practice.
So in my private practice, again, I work with small business owners, and my marketing is towards those small business owners in health and wellness, because that is a passion for me. My own experience, I want to, this is a way that I can contribute, right? I can help make those services more available by helping those businesses be more successful. Yes. So what I do with my private practice is I help my clients increase their profits. So profitability is like the center of the conversation. So what I do with a new client is I'll sit down with them and do an assessment of their business. And what I promise them is that I can find $10,000 in hidden loss or lost revenue in your business now. And so we go through this assessment, and we talk about usually about 3 different areas of their business in that conversation, and just explore those areas. If we had these pieces put into place, what impact do you think that would have on your business? And then it's easy to see an outline. Then here are the 3 areas. Here's the impact that that's going to have on my business, and here are the strategies now to fill this gap. And I have an entire library. So let's say that we're talking about lead gen. We need to generate more leads.
Get people in the door.
We need to get more people in the door. We need to get in front of more people. So how do we do that? Oftentimes, we limit ourselves to 2 or 3. And I would say that as a practice, we shouldn't go beyond 2 or 3. But what happens though is I think new small business owners pick 2 or 3 and then just think that those are the only 2 or 3 that they'll ever be able to do in their entire life. I'm going to make phone calls, I'm going to have a drip campaign, and I'm going to have events, right? So there's nothing wrong with any of those. But if none of those align with who you are, it's going to be a fight to do any of that. So although these might be effective strategies, they may not be effective for you. So in this library of resources, I have 19 different ways that we can do lead generation, step by step. Here's how you do it. Here's the scripts for doing it, and any other supportive materials that you might need to get started. Like if we're talking about ads, how do we how do we write copy for that? One of the things that I really have found, even for myself, but as I talk to other small business owners, is we use the term market dominating position. So what is it that makes your business different than the ABC down the street? Right?
Yes.
And oftentimes it's really, small business owners have a hard time articulating what that is. And I have found that when we get clear on who we're serving, then we get to know what are the problems that they're facing. What are their hot button issues that they really want resolved?
Yes.
So who are we serving? What is the problem? And what are the benefits? What is it that they're really looking for? On the other side of this problem, what is it that they really want? And to start our conversation, any of our prints or any of our materials should highlight, here's the problem, right? Not making enough profits for your business. What you really want is you want to have free time, right? You wanted to be a small business owner in part, probably because you wanted some flexibility with your time, right?
Yes.
And what happens with small business owners is suddenly they have less time than they ever had in their life. So they want these profits and they want the more time for their family and to live. And so that's the result that I can get my clients to. We can get your business to a point where you're generating enough income that you have the systems in place that automate anything that can be automated so it runs smoothly so that you can take time off. You have to be able to take time off. Going back to that self-care piece, we have to build in time off so that we can rest, step away from what we're doing so that when we come back to it, we can see it with some fresh eyes.
Because, entrepreneurship, I always say, is a fine line between freedom and working yourself into the grave.
Exactly.
And it's coaches like you that help them maneuver that, right?
Exactly.
So involving the self-care, get the income up and get the time you spend with your family up. So the time you're spending alone in your business is down.
Exactly. And so this platform that I have to share with my clients then has all of the resources, because sometimes, one of the things that we talk about in transformational coaching is that if you're not getting the results you want, is it because you don't have the will or the skill?
Yep.
All right. The will can get really deep, right? Get into what is the real story.
Yes.
But the skill is an easy one. Like, do I know how to do this or do I not? But what I don't know is what I don't know. So having a platform like this is exactly what I wish that I would have had the first year that I was trying to start my business. Because what that would have done for me, in fact, I had this conversation with a client this week. He was asking about, because we're talking about, might have been social media. And he goes, well, does this mean that I'm going to have to start doing, posting on social media and whatever? And I said, well, that's one strategy. That is one strategy. And we would have to dig in to see what's your return on investment for that one strategy. But to your point, though, is do you have to do this? No, not necessarily. You can still hire someone to do this for you. But once you now know what the objective of social media marketing is, what are the metrics that you should be looking for to know whether or not this is working, now you have a context from which to make decisions on whether or not, Joe Blow down the street's offer of, hey, I'll do your social media for you. What are they promising me? I had another client who said, talking about a conversation like this, well, their idea of results were not my idea of results.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so even though you may not, and you shouldn't have to do all of the things that your business needs, you do need to know what is the objective, what is the purpose for this activity, what does this do for my business, what is it, the metrics that I should be looking at so that I can evaluate whether or not this particular service provider is going to take me where I want my business to go.
So I love these systems, Mary. What I'm hearing is even systems to determine not only what your strategies are going to be, but to determine if you're going to leverage it out.
Exactly.
If they're going to get you what you want. And by the way, I've seen your library. You shared that with me. It is power packed. Had I had that in my own business 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when I got started in a different direction, oh my goodness, it's like the roadmap.
It is.
It's like a GPS in your car. You punch in the address where you want to go, and it's the same in this library.
Literally.
Everything is in there.
It literally. And, when I first saw the library, I was a little overwhelmed, right? Oh my God, there's so much. And my mind always goes to, oh my gosh, that means I have to know all of this by next week, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yes. We do tend to do that, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. So through this assessment that I do with prospects then is we look at these three areas. What impact would that have? And if it's a big enough impact, then it ends up as a priority. And then we have our priorities and we map out our year. Here's how long we're going to work on each one of these priorities. Now go back to the library for the resources. So you don't have to use everything in the library. You say lead generation. Okay, I'm going to go to the library now on lead generation, right? And we're going to talk about those strategies. Everything you need to know about how to deliver those strategies is in there. So we have a roadmap. We have the resource kit for how to do it or how to leverage it out if that's appropriate.
Yeah.
So that, again, we're working as efficiently and as effectively as possible to get that return on investment and maximize our profit margins.
So powerful, so powerful. And you also talk about the pillars of your business.
Yes.
Tell me about those. We touched on them a little bit.
We sure have, right? So, and I'm going to tell a story about myself regarding this. So it was embarrassingly not that long ago. I was at one of these business conferences, and I stopped to talk to one of the vendors. And I don't know where my head was at that time, but we're having this conversation, and I was telling him that I was a business coach, and he goes, "Well, what are your credentials?" And this was my response.
Yeah.
And it was so much like literally, I felt like I was in a cartoon character in my head, like smacking the back of my head. Say something, Mary. Like,
right. Well, you should have asked him, do you have 45 minutes?
Right.
Because I can tell you my credentials, but it's a long story.
Right. So again, that was one of those really awkward moments where afterwards I had to say to myself, what are my credentials? What gives me the authority to say that I can help someone build their business?
Yeah.
And and I'm a models and systems person, right? So because I need to be able to focus. So what are those pillars that all small business owners need in order to have a successful business? And so my husband and I take long walks to the lake. We live in Chicago, and so we walk out to the lakefront on the weekends. And so I was mulling this over on the walk that weekend. And so I was thinking, well, a business owner, they need to have a really strong mindset. They need to know what they want and how they're going to get it. They need models and systems because you can't do everything all the time. You need to be efficient. And you need to be able to lead others, right? Got to lead yourself, and then you have to lead others. And as I'm walking, I'm like, wow, this is really good stuff. This is brilliant. And then I come back to the house and I'm looking at my logo, and what does it say? Mindset, profit, and leadership. Yeah, I have
full circle, Mary.
Full circle. Full circle. Sometimes you just got to know you got to get stuck. Right? And have to re-put things back together for it to click again. So
and be okay with being stuck.
Yes.
And be okay with those events, where you have the cartoon character and they say something, right? Because there's always beautiful things on the other side of all of that.
Yes. Yeah. So those are the three areas when I'm sitting down with the client. Those are the three areas that we're going to focus on. What is your mindset? And your mindset goes back to, what do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about what it is that you're trying to achieve? What do you believe about your worthiness of achieving this?
Yeah.
And so we have to go back, not to focusing on what you're doing necessarily, but what are the stories that you're telling yourself? That's where the mindset work. A lot of people might be more familiar with emotional intelligence, right? Yes. So emotional intelligence teaches us that the first thing that we need to do is learn to observe ourselves. Yeah. And we need to observe how we react or respond to events that happen outside of ourselves. And what is the story that we're telling ourselves that creates that experience, right? So somebody flips me off on the highway, right? What's the story that I'm telling myself about that? Do I get triggered and upset because they have somehow, insulted me? Or do I just say, wow, they must be having a really bad day and move on? Right?
Yeah.
That's mindset, because that mindset, then that story that I'm living from is going to generate the emotions, which is going to generate then my reactions. So if I feel insulted, if my story is I'm insulted, I'm probably going to flip the guy off back. Right? But if I'm thinking, wow, this poor guy is having a really rough day, I'm just going to pull back. I'm going to let this guy
send him some good vibes.
Give him room. Give him all the room he needs.
Yep.
Right? And he goes on with his way. I go on with my day, and there's no hangover from it.
I love that you address that, because in my mind as a coach as well, that we can teach people, right? The right systems, the right models, the right leverage. And if these 5 inches are not right, they'll stand in their way. And I love that you shared your story in vulnerability, Mary, because so many people that we come across are afraid to admit they've got these beliefs, these little gremlins in the back of their head that says, you can't do this, you don't deserve it, you're not enough. You're not enough. You don't have anything to offer. That has been in my history. It's been in your history. But then we just when we do that transformational work, it like plucks it out of there and frees them up to really show up as the person they were created to be, so their full journey can be complete. Like
exactly.
Yours.
Exactly. I love how you describe, that we can change those stories. We can change the stories that we're telling ourselves. We just have to first become aware of what are we telling ourselves.
That it's there.
Yes.
Awareness is step number 1.
And I think the other part is, for me, again, I thought I was the only one who felt like I wasn't enough. I thought I was the only one who felt like maybe I didn't deserve this. Right? No, we all have bits of that. We all have parts of those stories within us. It just depends on how much of that story are we living with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my path of transformation has been to continue to whittle away at those limiting stories that I've created for myself. And that unless and until I chose to look at them, I would still be living by that.
Absolutely. And I almost see them sometimes as layers.
Definitely.
Right? Because we're always doing our work. And the minute we clear out and we feel good, life happens, right?
It does.
And we have moments where if we don't address it, that new story will begin to grow and not in the direction we want it. So it's something. I look at mindset and transformational work as something. It's a journey.
Yes.
Right. It's not a one and done. It's because life still, unless you're going to go live under a rock,
right,
after you clear it all out, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have experiences and people say things and do things in life events. Yeah.
I've seen recently, I think it showed up in a book I've been reading. I think it showed up in a conversation I was having with a client, and it showed up in some social media posts, all about this idea that enlightenment is not a destination, right? It's a process. And so we clear a layer, we break through. Oh my gosh, this feels so wonderful. Like, oh my, this is who I really am, right? And then life happens again, and then we feel crappy again because something else now has triggered another layer in us. Yes. We break through that layer. Oh my gosh, I feel good again, right? And sometimes I think individuals who don't see the whole story, right? They're just seeing the part that they're in. That could be seen as just, I continue to fail over and over again, right? I thought I won, and then bad things happened again. And I experienced pain again. And then I thought I won again, but then I experienced pain again. It's not, nobody's failing. That's growth. Yes. That is growth. It's the next challenge.
Yeah. And to accept that and look at it that way is a whole reframe. And so powerful. Right. Yeah. When we start to ask ourselves those questions through those hard times, what am I making this mean?
Yes.
Right. That's good stuff, Mary.
Well, and I'd like to come back to the self-care, because I think this is probably where I lean into self-care the most.
Yes.
So one of the things that I really try to focus on, or to be who I want to be is someone who is always observing myself. And how am I responding to what is happening? Am I owning what's my response, or am I making somebody else responsible for how I'm feeling?
Right.
And in that experience, it's not uncommon then to see how I've acted or seen how I've shown up and been ashamed, right? Or disappointed, like, oh, that's not who I've wanted to be. So for me, self-care is just loving that part of me who was doing the best she can in that moment.
Yeah.
Again, going back to Glasser's bit, we're always doing the best we can with what we've got.
Absolutely.
So for me, self-care really is about self-forgiveness, grace, compassion, any of those kinds of words. While I'm in the midst, especially when I'm in the midst of a challenge.
So true. So true. It's all part of the package.
Yeah.
Right. I love that, Mary. Oh my goodness. So what else do you do for self-care? Let's dive. I want to hear a little bit more about the self-care. So you do acupuncture, you do the natural stuff as well. And that's why you are serving those people.
Correct.
And then part of self-care is the mindset work and loving on all the different parts of yourself and accepting it and giving grace instead of judging.
Yes.
Because when we judge ourselves for what we see is what we don't like, there's no movement.
Exactly.
Any other components to your self-care?
I would say that probably the activity that I'm most committed to is in the morning. I usually give myself an hour of just time by myself before I get to work. So in that time, I'll do a variety of things. Right now, we have a VR headset, and there's an app called Trip that is a meditation app. And so there's all of these amazing sceneries, and the meditations are awesome. So that's my meditation these days. I also like to listen to inspirational kinds of books. I've got on Audible, like some of my favorites, I'll just keep coming back to over and over and over again. So I do those things. And one thing that I'm wanting to do more of, especially in the evenings, is embroidery. So I've just decided, like, I used to do.
I didn't even know that, Mare.
It's new. This is literally new from this summer. I had an opportunity to do some sewing, and my growing up, I was in 4-H and had sewing projects for 4-H, and I hated it. I hated it because I was in the house during the summer, trying to sew together these outfits or dresses or blouses or whatever I was making, and if it wasn't perfect, I had to tear it out and put it back together, and there was nothing about it that I liked. But the summer then I was doing another sewing project with my family, and I'm kind of, grumbling about the sewing and where my sewing start had been. And I really had to look at what I was doing. I was like, I really kind of like the sewing part. Like it's that so itself, cool. Isn't it? It was being stuck in the house. It was having to fix all of my errors all the time, right? That's what I didn't like about the sewing, but I actually like it. So I have a beginner sewing kit that I've been playing around with. So sometimes I'll pull that out after dinner and have the TV on while I'm doing something.
Yeah, I absolutely
kind of mindless.
That. Yeah, I really want your followers to even get to know you more. And I want to thank you for your vulnerability, because that's where the magic is at. Mm-hmm. When we as business owners, when our tribe knows that, because they look up to us, but it makes it okay to not be perfect, right?
Yeah.
But you're such a wonderful soul and being. You've got this energy about you that is safe. Right. And fun, because we've had some laughs, Mary. Yes. We have had some belly bursting, belly laughs together. And, what else could we tell your fans about you that they wouldn't know?
Oh, my goodness.
We got embroidery.
I do want to come back to that, but I want to make a comment on the fun bit, because so the listeners don't know, but Monica and I met each other through this real estate company. And so we were coaching together and we were going through the training part together. And in the training part, we had to do role plays. And so I really didn't know Monica. Monica didn't know me. I'm doing a role play for her because that's what we do for one another. And in the role play, Monica, you asked me if you could do anything. What was it? If money was not an object, what would you be doing? And I said, well, I'd be having fun. And the answer popped out of my head quicker than I had a chance to even evaluate it before I said it. And it was, again, one of those times where I heard myself say it. I would be having fun. Well, why am I not having fun now?
Right.
So I come back to that memory often when I feel like I'm not having fun. Where's the fun in this? And start looking for, let's shift our mindset from, oh my God, this is horrible and I'm behind or whatever I'm telling myself, to look at what I get to do. Look at what I get to do every single day, who I get to do it with, who I get to do it for, what the results we get to do. This is fun.
And you know what? And I love that you say that, Mary, and it is true. And I love that you say we get to.
Yeah.
Because we do. What we do, we get to do it. And it fills our energy bucket. And we have to be aware of the fun factor.
Yeah.
Right? One of my own coaches told me at one of my points when I was burnt out and overwhelmed, and we all go through it, right? And those are the lessons we have to learn.
Right.
So we don't do that anymore. Is, well, where is your, you said you bring the fun factor all the time, Monica. Where is it? And so I think we have to intentionally bring the fun factor into our lives and into our sessions with our clients. If I feel personally, if we don't have them laughing at some point, right, because they need to relieve that stress, and we need to remind them what means fun to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, not only for ourselves, but for them, it's huge.
Yeah, we have such a strong work ethic. Yes. Right? That I feel like I have to be doing something productive all the time, or I'm not using my time wisely. Yeah. Fun. We could do a whole conversation on fun, but I do want to thank you for asking that question, for having that that strong memory that it's an anchor for me now. Really coming back to
beautiful.
We'll need to bring in some fun. So, that being said, I tend to be a homebody kind of a person. Like with this whole pandemic lockdown, although I was able to work, it didn't interrupt my work very much because I was already working from home. And
right.
But I also realized that I was a little too comfortable just staying in my house all the time. And so when things started opening up, I really, again, had that opportunity to look back and say, yeah, that was good. I'm glad I was comfortable with it at the time, but I don't ever want to be that comfortable being that isolated anymore. So Marco and I started walking out to the lakefront on Saturday and Sunday mornings. It's about a 3-mile walk one way. So it's a hefty little walk. We're both early risers. So that's something about me that my clients know. Like after 8 o'clock at night, I'm probably not going to be responding to anything, not because I'm not checking, but because I'm sleeping.
Yes.
And if you want to catch me, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning is probably going to be the best time to catch me. But that's usually when I'm getting up. And so Marco and I both have that tendency to wake up early. So we get to take this walk to the lakefront really while the rest of the city is sleeping. So it's very quiet. And most of the time the weather is really beautiful. And I've loved just watching the early spring flowers come up because we started this in March. And so we started to see the crocuses come up and then the daffodils and then the tulips and then the trees were blooming. And, we got to see the baby ducks or geese on the lake. And it's just, that is an experience that just fills me up every single weekend. Just being in nature. We live in an urban area. And so this is a way to really, we walk to the lakefront where there's a public zoo and a little pond, I guess they call it, where a lot of wildlife lives and it grows wild. so all the different flowers, the wild flowers that grow up and when they bloom, and, you know, the birds that are picking at their seeds. And I had one of those red-winged blackbirds.
Yeah.
Marco and I were doing a little selfie there was a nice little waterfall in the back. And coming up to the waterfall where we were going to take the selfie, I saw this bird just kind of off to the side. And so we're taking the picture, and something just said to me, just keep the camera up there. And Marco stepped out of the camera, and I kept it up there. And this bird literally sat on my head.
Are you serious?
And I got a picture of it. Yes.
Oh, Mary, I've got to check that out.
Yes, it's amazing. I'll ask my guys if we can find a way to get that picture embedded in here somewhere. It's an amazing photo. And it you know, it's just one of those experiences, again, of being connected to nature. I saw this bird. It was almost like we kind of had this unspoken deal that we made as I walked by, and that I just waited for it when Marco stepped out, and you know, on Apple phones, you have the live features.
Yes.
So on this live picture, you can see Marco moving out of frame and the bird coming right on my head.
What a trip.
Yeah.
I love that story, Mary. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
So being outside I love it. I grew up on a farm. And so that's where a lot of my work ethic comes from. You know, I'm a farmer's daughter. I've been working since I was a kid and had responsibilities and had, you know, things that I needed to do. And I love being outside. I do love to work, but I'm learning to have some fun in there as well, as we talked about.
I love those. All your stories are so incredible. It paints a beautiful picture of who you are.
Thanks. I'm liking who I am too.
All of that. Well, I love who you are personally. And everyone who meets you does, because of that magnetic energy and the space that you create. And people remember how you make them feel. Right. And you, as you move them along, make them feel quite incredible. Just being in your presence. So thank you for being you, Mary.
Thank you. And even that quote, right? That's a Maya Angelou, right? People don't remember, they just remember how you made them feel. And I was a principal of a preschool building, and someone anonymously sent me that quote.
Wow.
Yeah. And I actually, when I received it, I thought, I wonder how I made this person feel, right?
Good or bad.
I know. I hope this meant that they felt good. But again, that experience that's an anchor for me that comes back to how am I creating that space? Because I can't make you feel any particular way, right? Yeah. But I can create a space that's non-judgmental. I can create a space where I listen. And I think that's something about coaching that unless you've been with a coach, you may not understand the difference in listening.
Yeah.
Because most of the time when we're listening to one another, we're listening for what story are they telling and what story do I have that's similar to their story. So as soon as they're done talking, when they take a breath, I'm going to jump in with my story. Here's my experience with that. Yeah. And in a coaching listening, it's all about you're listening for the client. You're listening for how are they making meaning of this scenario? And I'm not asking questions relative to me. I'm asking questions of that client to go deeper into what their own thoughts are, into their own story, so that that kind of listening takes you deeper into who you are. And I think that's kind of in a non-judgmental space, that's creates the context for change.
And asking them questions that nobody ever asks.
Yeah.
Right. And holding up that mirror, because people don't do that.
Exactly.
And I've seen you do that time after time after time.
I love what I get to do.
Yeah.
And I love being able to work, with partners like you. And we've got another friend, Jeff Adler, who is an amazing coach as well. And I'm really blessed. I am blessed to have such strong people around me And again, as I'm going through my transformation, I am literally realizing over and over again that I always have what I need right in front of me. I may not see it. I may not be aware of it. I may not be taking advantage of it, but I know that it's there.
Absolutely. I love that, Mary. Powerful. Is there anything else before we wrap up that I've not touched on that you want to share?
Oh, wow. We've covered a lot of territory.
We have, and it's been so incredible. Even I learned so much because we've never actually sat down, and I'm just in awe of your story.
Oh, thank you.
And it just reconfirms what I already believe is that everything is a stepping stone, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, the shit storms, all of it to get us to, it's the lessons to get us to where we need to be in life to fulfill our purpose. And you're in the sweet spot. And I just could not be more blessed and honored than to be, with you and watching all of this unfold. That's fabulous, Mary.
Thank you. And thank you for doing this interview with me today. I knew you know me well enough to, help me bring out those stories that I may not have shared otherise. Absolutely. So I really appreciate you as well. But before we go, I do want to say that I am offering free 45-minute assessments, as I had described.
That was my next question. If someone wants to get in touch with you.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And so doing these 45-minute assessments, I'll find you that $10,000 in hidden revenue and give you a roadmap of how to fill that gap. I'm also offering financial training for entrepreneurs. Now, this is another area. I thought I was the only one who didn't know anything about a profit and loss statement or money. I mean, as a director of special education, I was running a $6 million budget, but that's different than running a profit and loss statement and how much income am I getting and what's my return on investment and what's my profit margin. That's a whole nother way of looking at numbers. And again, I thought I was the only one who hesitated from that, but I'm finding there's a lot, of course, regardless of what your area of expertise is, it's probably not business development. Right? Yep. Even if you have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree in business, they don't teach you necessarily how to build a business. They teach you fundamentals of business, but not how to do it. So financial training, it's one of those things that I think every entrepreneur needs to understand your profit and loss statement. Let's make that accessible for you. Let's break down the mystery so that now you can start using that to make decisions for your business. That's going to show you the gaps. It's going to show you what your business needs. And again, going back to that first year, I didn't know what I needed. So I'm buying this, I'm buying that, and none of it's adding up. So when we can make decisions from our profit and loss statement, now we know where the gaps are. We know what we need to spend on, and we can do that in a very intentional manner, not just a willy-nilly, let's find a shiny object and drop it in and see what happens.
Accident, right? Being very purposeful, intentional. I love that.
Exactly.
And by the way, everyone, Mary did that 45-minute assessment with me. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. It's such an eye-opening process. And you're right. If you think about it, acupuncturists, massage therapists, CBD people who sell that, any type of entrepreneur is we know our specialty. We know our craft, right? We know how to coach. We know how to do acupuncture.
Exactly.
No one said, here's how to build the business.
Right.
And so your services are just so needed and so powerful. Thank you for showing up and being you and contributing. And your story from day one was having impact.
Yeah.
When you were even in grade school, it sounded like you saw a need and look at that journey. I am so blessed and honored to be a witness to this journey today, Mary. Yeah. So how do they reach out to you for that 45-minute assessment?
Yeah. So you can go to my website, mmgcoaching.com. You can email me directly, mary@mmgcoaching.com. And let me know that you want an assessment and we'll get it scheduled. And, it's a roadmap. I can't think of any way to structure a business with more intention and focus than this kind of assessment and then the roadmap and then following that roadmap with timelines and to have the resources to know how to do it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's an incredible package. Anyone who works with you is going to be blessed. And watching their journeys, I know, just fills your heart with joy.
It does. It does.
Yeah, because you get to do it, Mary.
I do.
Well, thank you for your time today. It's truly been an honor and a blessing to be a witness to this whole thing. I'm just so grateful to you.
I am so grateful to you as well, and grateful to have found you along this journey.
Ditto. It was not on accident. That was intentional. That was part of the plan, right?
Exactly.
And we had no idea in the beginning.
Right. So let's just take a moment. I just want to put it out into the universe. Like, this is where I am today. Who knows where you and I will be 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 24 months from now. It's just continuing to, for me, I think the way I get to that outcome that I can't even imagine at this point, by just showing up, stop fighting things that are fighting, and just go with the flow with things that are flowing, and understand, like we were saying before we started this recording today, like we scheduled this some time ago, and and one thing after another just seemed to postpone it or delay it. And that could have been a story of, gosh, why aren't we getting this done?
Right.
But literally the timing is perfect because this is going to be able to come out on my birthday. And
on your birthday!
And I think that's just, I don't know, it feels symbolic to me. And I'm really proud to have to do that. So again, it's looking ahead. I don't know exactly where I'm going to be. I know it's going to be amazing. And that the only thing I have to do to get there is just to continue to stay in the flow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait. I've heard a podcast about be expectant of good things to come, like an expectant mother. Yes. She knows she's going to have that baby. It's coming, right? And so for you and I am expecting some good, powerful, yummy, incredible things that are coming down the pipe. I'm so excited. And before we close, since this is coming out on your birthday, Mary, I want everyone to write to Mary at mary@mmg.com and wish her a happy birthday when you ask for that free 45-minute assessment, which is mind-blowing, friends, mind-blowing.
Oh, thank you, Monica. I treasure you so much.
Same, sister.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of In Flow with Soul. I hope that you're feeling rested, maybe a little inspired, and maybe you learned a little something today. So before you go, let's sneak in one more episode. Check out one of these two here.